Hello and welcome to the Lego Potter podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Gio, and I am joined, of course, as with my co-host is Misha. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Really excited to get this started.
Yes, so this is, if you haven't gotten the idea from the title already, this is a podcast dedicated to Lego Harry Potter and the Wizarding World theme. And I thought me and Misha have known each other for a little bit, and we've had some pretty strong opinions and some interesting discussions on the Lego Harry Potter line and Lego in general. And I thought, with the age of podcasting, why don't we take our opinions, take ourselves, and make a whole show dedicated to, I guess, what I could say would be probably both of our favorite Lego themes. So,
definitely.
yeah, and I'm really excited to start this off. This is, I guess, our pilot. I thought we can maybe start off this episode by discussing what was our start with maybe Lego or Lego Harry Potter in general. Do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I am in my upper 20s now, and I started collecting Lego Harry Potter when I was like 7. Like when the first round of sets came out, I got the winged keys for Christmas and a few more for my birthday over the next several months. I really enjoyed them, but it wasn't until later that I really fell in love with the theme. It was actually after Chamber of Secrets started, and they released the second round of sets, that I noticed that the Lego had a lot of characters that no other merchandise represented at the time. So you could get a Ginny Weasley in Lego, and you could get a Professor McGonagall and Madame Hooch and a bunch of characters that were really not represented by any other merchandise. And that's when I kind of thought, like maybe Lego's the way to go. And then that kind of augmented as the series went on, because the Lego line was really the only consistent toy or line of merchandising for a kid to collect throughout the movies. And then I think it just kind of carried into my adult life, and I was consistently collecting until 2017, and then the 2018 line kicked off. So I've been a pretty avid collector since the beginning.
Oh, that's cool. I've had a kind of similar experience, but I've my first set was probably, at least for Harry Potter, I got throughout the years as a kid. I got I started off with Duplo, as a lot of kids did, and then I kind of I think everybody at one point gets a giant bin or a bag from a garage sale with a bunch of random bits, and through that random bits I got this huge kind of clear bag of bits from the 90s and 2000s, and in there I got a lot of early 2000s Harry Potter parts. Some of note was I just had Lucius Malfoy. He was the only complete minifigure, well, at least from Harry Potter, in there. And I always, for so many years, I wasn't familiar with Harry Potter or who this. Well, I was, but I was so unfamiliar who's this character. So it was always a mystery minifigure to me. And then I had various of those printed tiles and stuff. But around 2008 or 2007, I actually got another garage sale find, and it was the 2001 Diagon Alley shops, which is those little kind of multicolored sets with the paper backdrops that they kind of put out for Philosopher's Stone. I think they were more aimed at girls, but I remember I got that set, and it had it wasn't complete, so I couldn't really build it, but it had Hermione, and it, for some reason, Snape was in there, and Ron's hair, just his hair, was in that set. And for me, for that same year, I got as a birthday gift, a very weird birthday gift, I got Philosopher's Stone on VHS, which I still have to this day, and a bottle of Harry Potter shampoo. So I got that, and I got that set, and it kind of kicked off my love for the franchise. But around that time, Indiana Jones Lego came out, which probably my second favorite theme, and I kind of got developed in that. So I kind of fell off the Harry Potter bandwagon. But then this new wave of sets came out in around 20, I believe it was 2009, 2010. And I got sucked back into that. And since then, I've been a Lego Harry Potter fanatic. And like you've said, I've been on and off. Like, every once in a while, I'll go off and then I'll come back to collecting. But it's been definitely great to have that 2018 wave. It really sucked me back into Lego because that was definitely an off period. So it was really great to get back into that. And it's definitely hurt my wallet, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, but in the best way possible. And it's been great to collect the stuff, display it, make my own mocks, and just overall get into a love of Lego again that I kind of forgot about. So it's been pretty great.
Yeah, I can definitely second you on the 2018 wave, like sucking me back in. I remember seeing, I didn't see like any of the leaks or any of the promotional images until the week before they came out. I had kind of been on a year off of Lego because I noticed that, there was a period where a lot of the old sets were fairly affordable on eBay and on secondhand shops from like 2015 to 2017. And they were starting to pick back up in price. So I was like, okay, I'm not like dealing with that anymore. And then I saw that night all of the 2018 models, and I was up, I think, until like 2 a.m. on a work night. And I was like, oh my God, they're back. So yeah, that felt like Christmas morning a little bit.
Oh yeah, and it's for me it was so weird. I remember seeing those because I wasn't following any I was really out of Lego at that point. Like not really like grown out of it, but I wasn't keeping up to date. I would like find out about new sets because like I'd just go to like Walmart or Toys R Us and kind of go, "Oh, that's out." But there would be no themes at that time that were really like capturing my interest. But I have a lot of friends who are into trains and like model trains and stuff. And actually, I found out because I saw one of them said, "Oh, look, they're making Lego's making British steam trains," and I'm like, "Oh!" And it was a joke, but it was the Hogwarts Express. But that was like I remember when the 2000 I believe 2009, 2010 Hogwarts Express came out. I saw that. And unfortunately, that's one of the only ones I never got my hands on. But I saw that and I'm like, wow, this is great. There's no way they can top this. And I remember that's what 2009 me was saying. And I remember I saw that promotional image, and it actually had a side rod, a moving side rod that none of them had. And I just saw, wow, if this is just the train, I can't wait to see what they do with the castles. And I saw the castle stuff and I'm like, oh, back into Lego again. So I just, and then the Bricktober promotion happened and I bought the Whomping Willow set. And then I got that set of 4 minifigures and I'm like, well, I'm back into Lego collecting. And then I just grabbed all my sets. I disassembled them all, gave them a wash because they were all extremely dusty from sitting on a shelf in the basement for so long. And it felt so great to get back to that.
Yeah, it really is great. And I remember seeing the train photos as well. And that's the only Hogwarts Express I've ever bought. I've kind of, as I said, collected since the beginning. And the train, I never really cared about it. I've always been, and I'm sure you can tell this from my Instagram, I've always been very interested in Hogwarts and what's going on at the school and in the classes, and
oh yeah,
not so much the peripheral stuff. But that train really, like, I actually think that's probably the most attractive set of the entire new wave, just based on the likeness to the movie and the accuracy, and just I was really blown away by it. So
oh
yeah.
definitely. A question that I have, and maybe I'm not sure if this is the perfect time to ask it or not, but I'm really curious about the line itself. Like how long? Because right now there's not really any Harry Potter movies coming out. I know there's Fantastic Beasts. I think there's a sequel in the works, but I'll have to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the Fantastic Beasts series. I embarrassingly fell asleep during the second one.
Oh my gosh, I did too, in the theater.
Really? Oh
I
my
did.
God.
Yeah,
It,
I was with friends and I passed out in theater. It was horrible.
oh,
Friends of Grimble, garbage.
I don't blame you. I don't understand why his minifigure sold for so much money for such like a bad like why are people paying $30 for this Chase minifigure? But oh, and it's just I'm curious like to go off of what I was saying, but like I'm not sure how long do you think they're going to continue to take the line out? Because as you know, every once in a while, a Lego line comes and goes, but it eventually retires entirely, and the entire line is kind of like canned. Do you think they're going to eventually kind of wind down the line and just completely stop producing Harry Potter sets? Like, since there probably won't be any like movies coming out for a while, or do you think they're going to continue to produce sets for like kind of like Star Wars? Like there wasn't a Star Wars movie for a while, but we kept kind of getting like Star Wars kind of like companion sets.
I really hope that it's going to kind of be the same thing. And I think it has the potential to grow that way. I think they originally started the line because there's always been consistent interest online, in the forums and Eurobricks and
Mhm.
stuff. People are always kind of asking about that. And also Lego ideas. So many of them submitted were Harry Potter ones. And I think they kind of realized now is the time when people who are my age are having kids and they want to introduce their kids to Harry Potter. And so I think they really wanted to capitalize on the nostalgia of the old movies. It's 20 years old now, and a full generation has passed since I was a kid watching those movies.
Mhm.
And I really think that the theme has embodied a totally different consumer now, to be honest. Like, I think this theme is really well marketed to both boys and girls, and both adults and kids. And I just think that this was a really good way to go back through and hit all the things they kind of missed. And I think that it's selling a lot better than they thought it would. And so I think that's where it has the potential to kind of turn into a Star Wars thing. Because if you think about everything that's kind of happened, where they started with movies 1, 2, and 3 in the first wave, and then the second wave was movies 3, 4, and then they went to 5, 6. And now we're kind of revisiting Chamber of Secrets with the Dursley house, and we're getting Hogwarts moments, which are kind of, definitely geared towards year one. And then we've gotten a visit back to the Yule Ball with this year's advent calendar. And it's really like they're really trying to fill in the gaps, but also they're not shy about making things over again. Like, they're not shy about remaking the same scene within the context of the new line, which is a very Star Wars-esque kind of trait.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, like, really, like, the main success of this line has just been filling in the gaps and like understanding that Harry Potter is just as deep of a world as Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and some of the other things they've done. And like there is a market for a Hannah Abbott figure and all of these obscure characters. Like, had you told me 10 years ago that we were going to be getting like a licensed Padma Patil from the Yule Ball, I would have laughed at you. And I just think that them going back and like thinking about how the fandom has grown over 20 years and what people actually care about and how invested people are, even in minor characters and little scenes that, a lot of people who aren't super familiar might forget. They just, really want to bring that out. So I think they do a great job with it.
Definitely. I agree with that. Particularly on the part with them going back to movies. I was really happy that they did that because I got disappointed. Like I thought when I saw they were going off to the deeper films, I'm like, oh man, we're never gonna get anything from Chamber of Secrets because that's my favorite Harry Potter film, and I was like hoping
Oh,
we'd get
that's my
more. And then,
favorite too.
oh, that's awesome. And then I was so happy when we saw the Dursley house, and then eventually we got Diagon Alley, which I'm not sure if I'm going to invest the $500 into that yet, but I'm thinking I might, just because it was so. I'm so happy that we finally have, after 20 years, an actual another figure of Gilderoy Lockhart, which is one of my favorite characters. I think he has one of the funniest looking minifigures, one of probably my top 10. But I think, though, if they do ever, I wouldn't say I wouldn't. I think I'd agree with you. I don't think they'll ever like retire the line, but I think the closest that they'll go, I think maybe they'll just like continuously produce like probably the Great Hall set, because I think that's like a, like you were saying, like introducing, that's like the perfect kind of introduction set right there, because you get like the three main characters, the three like main key I guess kind of teachers, and like Dumbledore, like um McGonagall and Snape, and then you've got like some supplementary characters like Draco and Nearly Headless Nick. It's like, almost for me, it's like the perfect way to start. It's picturesque almost.
I agree. And I think that, I think there's going to be a couple from the early sets that really outlast a lot of the others. And I think the Hogwarts Express is up there. I think the Great Hall is up there. We recently saw Quidditch retire, which I think that was phased out in November 2020. And that really surprised me, because I didn't think that Quidditch, which is such a key part of the books and the movies, was going anywhere. But then that kind of makes me wonder, like, oh, they must be redoing it in some way. So I think we're kind of going to see those kinds of things. And there are rumors for next year or actually this year, 2021, for another Great Hall. So I think we're going to kind of see continued iterations over and over and over again, which is great, because it's always, a slightly different design. It's always, there are always little pieces from each one that you can really take to make, your mocks and to make the best one possible.
Oh yeah, definitely. And with what you said about the Quidditch, I think, now I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard that there's going to be like an add-on. I think, I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's just rumors, and it's probably not going to happen, but if it does happen, I guess I'll be surprised. But there was rumors that there's supposed to be an extension, but I'm not sure how legitimate that is and how like that would work. I still have my Quidditch set. I have it sealed. I feel bad. It was a gift. I haven't opened it. I'm saving it for a rainy day. But I'm not sure if it can be expanded upon. But I assume that it would be like a second set of rings, because I know that one only came with one set, and you need two to have like the full field. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out, if that is true at all, because they did do the robes, because I know they only did Slytherin and Gryffindor in that set, but they did do robes for Quidditch for the other houses. So maybe they'll be releasing those in one of those sets. That, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing those. I will save this for another day, but I was not initially taken with the Diagon Alley images that I saw. But when I noticed that they had kind of snuck the Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw robes into quality Quidditch supplies, I thought, there's going to have to be a way for them to make those more available, because no one is buying 7 Diagon Alleys. There's got to be a way to make those more widely available to everybody. So I kind of see them doing that in some way. I don't know if we're going to get kind of like a Quidditch pack that mirrors the student pack with, Cedric, Cho, Harry, and Draco as, in their Quidditch robes, or if it's kind of going to be a Quidditch pitch for the second set of movies, like maybe something where Ron's the keeper and Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw, because, chose the Ravenclaw seeker. But I definitely see that those figures coming back another way. I don't think they would have invested in such a versatile print and then just put them in one set when it's a very in-demand figure. Like, I will say Lego has been really, really, really generous in the 2018 line of making initially rare pieces more accessible as time goes on.
100%.
The best examples of those I can think of are the just the house jumpers. Initially Cho was only available in the original CMF, and that was the only Ravenclaw sweater. And Susan Bones was the only Hufflepuff, and she was available only in the Great Hall. And for a long time, Draco was the only Slytherin, and he was available only in the Great Hall. And so now they've really opened the floodgates, and you can kind of get those jumpers, for $15. So I hope they do the same thing with Quidditch.
I definitely I understand with some exclusive figures, probably we're not going to see that same Gilderoy or the Fred and George from that set. And I think some of the prints are exclusive for the minifigures in those, but I think that that would be such a wasted opportunity, because even for people who aren't inherently Harry Potter collectors, I know a lot of people out there like to buy, they have their Hogwarts house and they like to buy want to make their own sig fig for or a minifigure of themselves, and they want to have that. And no, again, like you said, nobody's going to buy that $500 set just for that. Just for that one piece. So I'm hoping Lego's generous. And what you're saying about the student pack is it's a little expensive personally, at least for me. It's around $20 in my currency, but it's just, that is, for me, it's a great set. Just for what you get, I would have liked a more personally, for the characters, because I only have the one, I would have liked maybe some different characters. I was hoping that that instead of Draco, since kind of there's a similar one in the Astronomy Tower, I was really hoping for Crabbe or Goyle in his place, but I still think what they did in that set was great. So hopefully we see more stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I have to say, I bought several of the student pack, and it's one of my favorites. I mean, I like that it's so accessible, in the United States, which is where I'm located. It's $15. And I have a lot of friends who are extremely casual collectors who have picked that up because, it's a great way to get some of the main characters and then just kind of have some extra faces and hair and stuff. And I kind of agree with what you're saying about the Malfoy figure. It would have been nice to get Goyle or Crabbe or Blaze or someone else. But I do also think that Malfoy outside of that set has been pretty elusive. Before the student pack and I guess the potions Hogwarts moment set, you were really only seeing him in the big stuff. So I think that was their way of making him accessible. And then Hannah and Cho, I kind of understand as, they wanted to do 2 boys and 2 girls. And Hannah is a recycle of Fleur's face, which isn't amazing, but it actually is a pretty good likeness. If you look at
it kind of works.
The one photo that's kind of a high resolution image of her from the 4th movie. And Cho is kind of the main Ravenclaw outside of Luna, so it makes sense.
Oh yeah. But hopefully, I hope we see more sets of those. But now to kind of go off of that, there's been a bit of discussion for the 2021 wave. There's supposed to be, or there's talk of people already looking forward to 2022. What do you think is most likely that Lego is going to be making? What are your predictions?
So I'm really, really torn because I've heard all of the rumors. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners have heard of regarding the 20th anniversary wave this summer, summer of 2021. And I'm pretty excited about those sets. I love that we would be revisiting the earlier movies. But as for if we get a fall release as well, and going into 2022, I really don't know if they're going to speed right to Deathly Hallows. It just kind of feels fast, especially when I think Deathly Hallows is just generally such a departure from the rest of the series because it is much darker and it's much more in the outside world than anything else. all of the other movies pretty much happen within the same 5 square miles.
Yeah.
But Deathly Hallows is all over the place and like tons of different sets that could be made. But I don't know. And I think the other thing with Deathly Hallows, so we have to remember, is that it's a lot darker. I was actually talking to someone in the community about this week. Like, they are not going to make, most likely, a Malfoy Manor Hermione torture chamber set to market to children. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
they
yeah.
really have to be very careful about how they pick and choose things for Deathly Hallows. And I don't know. I just don't really think that they're going to go there. Maybe towards like maybe September 2022. Um, but I think they're making a lot of money on the Hogwarts extensions and everything that's kind of going on with them really like amplifying the student life aspect of the line with the
Mhm.
Hogwarts moments and the room of requirement and all of those things. So I don't know if they're going to speed away from that so quickly, but I could be totally wrong. I mean, I really, as far as things outside of the anniversary wave this year, I really haven't heard any credible rumors. I've heard a few people kind of have have heard like whisperings, but I don't really know if that's them just making it up or if that's like actually something. But um, I don't know. I'm really torn. What are your thoughts though?
Well, the Malfoy Manor one's an interesting one. Like, I don't think they do like the torture chamber scene. But what's funny is, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a DK publishing book made for Harry Potter back for the 2011 line, and it was called Lego Harry Potter Building the Magical World. It came with a minifigure of Harry, and it was like kind of an encyclopedia of, at that point, all the sets that have been released and like different versions of the characters. What was really cool about the book, and I think there's a version of this book that's been published that just covers the 2018 to 2020 wave. But what was really cool is that they had a behind the scenes page, which had a bunch of like early concepts and like sculpts of the minifigures hair. And like, what was interesting is they had concept sketches, and one of them was actually of a Malfoy Manor set. And it was like, it wasn't even a set like brick built. It was just very like a rough sketch with some minifigures. I think I'm going off the top of my head. I think Bellatrix was in there. And I think like, of course, I think one of the Malfoys and like, um, but it was like, for me, I remember seeing that and thinking, because that was probably around 2012 when that book came out. So I thought, oh, cool. So they're making a set of that in the next wave after the Night Bus and the Hogwarts extension comes out. And I was waiting and waiting, and obviously they never made that as a set. But I always had that at the back of my head. So when I heard the rumors, I kind of I thought like I thought of that design, and I'm like, oh, maybe there is a chance. But then I also remembered like exactly what you were saying. This is for kids. So that was probably put in the book to show like, yeah, this is a prototype of something that's never going to happen. I don't think it'll never happen. If they do have it, if they do make it, it would probably be something that would be like, I wouldn't say inaccessible, but probably something that would be put as like a direct to consumer kind of online or just Lego store only, like big set that like kind of a kid probably wouldn't get their hands on. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, I actually do have that book, and I have heard those rumors about Malfoy Manor before. And it's really interesting you said that because I wasn't even thinking that maybe they'd do a D2C. My thought was kind of they would do, if they would do it at all, would they would kind of do it the way they've done the graveyard scene, which is another kind of dark scene. Um, and in the graveyard, they've never included Cedric's minifigure because they don't want like kids playing with like a dead Cedric. And
Yeah.
I was thinking that they would probably exclude Bellatrix so that you couldn't actually play out that frankly terrifying scene uh, with this set. Like you would have to do something extra, bring in another figure from somewhere else to actually like reenact that if that's what you wanted to do.
I remember when the graveyard set came out, or at least the description of it came out. I thought to myself, because I never thought of like I always forget about that stuff, but I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's going to be a version of Cedric in this set because we just got him in the collectible minifigure series, and then I remember, oh, he's kind of dead in that scene, so I'm like, oh, that's smart that they released him beforehand, but yeah, it's real. That's quite the it's obviously, well, it's understandable because it's like at the end of the day, Lego is a children's toy, but yeah, it's interesting, all these kind of ideas you like one can think of for stuff that's going to get released. But yeah, I'm for one am very excited.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, and I think of like I'd love to get another CMF. You know, there were a lot of rumors last year about the CMF, and a lot of them turned out to be wrong. You
Yeah.
know, and I kind of feel like I'm still missing some characters that I'd really like. You know, from movie four particularly. I'm thinking of Rita Skeeter and Igor
Oh yes.
Karkaroff. A different Bobaton and a different Durmstrang student, like extras, would be nice. Um, so I do see them really like expanding the line, and I don't think it'll go indefinitely the way Star Wars has, but I do think that it will keep going as long as they are making money. And right now, it's been one of their top five themes in which includes, classic Lego, which is always at the top, you know.
Hmm.
So, I'm excited for things to come, and I think it'll be really really great. And I think also they really listen to their fans now. Like, I think a lot of the things that have come out are things that I would have died over as a kid. And that as an adult fan, if I could think of like something that I would want them to do, they are doing it.
Hmm.
Initially, that was Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw students. Like, I'm a proud Ravenclaw. Literally zero representation in the original line.
Oh
Like,
yes. Oh, I know all too
the
well.
only Ravenclaw was Luna Lovegood, and she didn't come in her jumper, so I was like not as interested in that. And so they've done that. They've done the Yule Ball, which I also would have loved as a kid. And I just think that they listen to the fans more, and Lego is very savvy now, and they understand their consumer, they understand the community, and they want to make us happy because making us happy makes them money, you know so
Oh, 100%. And like what you were saying with the collectible minifigure series, I think for Harry Potter, Lego should use that to their advantage because I know for a lot of their other lines, particularly like Star Wars, for example, like they can't do a line of like collectible minifigures for Star Wars, from what I understand, particularly because Hasbro Hasbro's license is like for action figures and like Legos is just for building toys. So they legally, from what I understand, they can't sell minifigures. So I'm thinking Lego should like do that with Harry Potter because like if they have the advantage to give us like some obscure characters that like obviously wouldn't have a set dedicated to them or wouldn't really fit in another set. Like exactly some of the characters you gave off, like the Beaubaton students and like Rita Seeker would be like prime for a collectible minifigure line. Like, and even if you can't do like the Malfoys from the later movies, like they would all be perfect. Like a Lucius, like an older version of him would be perfect for the collectible minifigure line. So hopefully, and I think, and like you said, with like it was crazy seeing them do Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff after like denying they existed. I think the only time they existed was in 2001 in the Sorting Hat set. There was that yellow dish that had a really off-colored Ravenclaw and a really off-colored Hufflepuff, and then there was the board game, which who even remembers the board games where there was like a tile that had Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff on it. But I think we've definitely come a long way, and I'm just so happy. Like, I do occasionally complain about the new sets mostly on, to be honest, on price because it does hurt my wallet. But it's absolutely fantastic to get this stuff. Like, oh, I feel spoiled as a Lego fan.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I feel like I can't get enough. Like, even once I've, you know, bought all of the new ones, I'm kind of like, okay, which one can I get another one of? Because I've got, some extra money and I want, to enhance something a little bit. And it's
Mhm.
really nice to know that, like, I don't know, like, I don't have to hunt on eBay to get what I'm looking for. Like, I can just go to Target or go to, any retailer online and just find it really easily. So,
Definitely. And speaking of that, I know I can relate to the struggle that you mentioned before. Like, obviously, for the longest time, Harry Potter stuff, Lego stuff was not in store, and there was no really other place to buy it other than like Bricklink and eBay. But to kind of divert the conversation, what would you say would have to be? Do you have besides Harry Potter? Do you have any favorite Lego themes? What would you say is your top three?
okay, so I'm weak for the licensed ones. And I will
Definitely.
say that everything, like Harry Potter is my true love. And so every other theme that I have really liked somehow ties into Harry Potter. I think the only other theme that I have loved in and of itself is Lord of the Rings, because you know, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter for me growing up were kind of like two sides of the same coin. I loved them both. I loved collecting the stuff from both. The movies came out at the same time. I was super into both of them. So having Lord of the Rings come out in 2011, 2012, whenever that was amazing. And I have heard whisperings that they are looking to renew that at some point in the future because the fan interest is so high. So I really do love the Lord of the Rings sets. And then I like Star Wars. Like I like a few Star Wars sets, but for years I would just kind of buy the Star Wars sets because they had pieces that were good to go with Harry Potter ones. Um, and I liked the Scooby Doo line that they did in 2016, but again, that was mainly to be for like Harry Potter adjacent pieces. Like there was a big mystery mansion that
Oh
in my
yes.
mind kind of looked like Malfoy Manor, with some color changes. And then there was a greenhouse that was attached to that I kind of used on my Hogwarts for a little bit. Um, so really like every theme I really loved has kind of like linked back to Harry Potter somehow, but I have given my money to other themes in small doses.
Oh yeah, I relate to that too. I have to say, I'm for Lego in general, I am again, as like you said, I love the licensed stuff. The experience of like having something that you love, like as like a TV show or movie, and being able to like build that and have like the characters as minifigures is fantastic. Speaking of that, probably the one film series that trumps Harry Potter, and I mentioned this before, not for Lego, but as the films themselves would probably for me have to be my one of my favorite film series, Indiana Jones. Loved it since it came out as a kid. Yes, and I even love the fourth one that everyone hates. And I remember when those sets came out back in 2007. I just got introduced to Indiana Jones. I picked up, as most probably 8 or 9 year olds my age, I was buying VHS tapes, and I bought the first two movies from a garage sale, and I remember watching those, and it was just fantastic. And I was just hooked on Indiana Jones, and then I started collecting all those sets. And I would have to say Indiana Jones is one of the lines where I would easily say there is not one set that I would say is weak or bad or mediocre. I think like in those 3 or 4 years that Lego were producing sets, there was not one stinker, and I just love the line. I haven't collected all the sets yet, but hopefully they are a bit still expensive. So some of them are actually still very expensive. So I'm waiting for the prices right for a few of them. Of course, it's the big ones that I'm missing. But that was probably one of my top ones. Like I've constantly have a few times when I'm like, I lose, I kind of like Harry Potter's on the back burner and Indiana Jones kind of takes over. And like, I just rebuild the same 9 sets I have and just watch the movies again. And that just kind of battles for number one. But that's probably another theme that I love. Besides that, another one I love, this one's actually not licensed, but I was I was around when Ninjago first came out, and I remember I watched the premiere of it, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." But then I saw they did this whole line with snakes, and they had all these special molded snake pieces. And I was like, "Oh, you've got my attention." And I just remember getting into that and collecting all the sets, and those were just like so cool. And the movie, I saw the movie, and the movie was like, it was okay, but I can't believe I'm saying this. I preferred the TV show, but that's a non-licensed line that I absolutely loved. And for top three, for the third spot, I have two. They're both technically licensed. One's a bit of a weird one. One would have to be this. This is a bit of a weird, but Batman, because around the time that Indiana Jones ended, there was kind of a Batman line kind of going on, and I started collecting that. They were based off like the Dark Knight movie that came out, and I was a huge. I remember watching that. Probably was too young to watch that as a kid, but I thought that was a pretty cool movie, and I bought most of the tie-in Lego sets, and I always thought they made all these sets with characters that weren't in the movie, and I'm like, I wonder why they made that even though that wasn't in the movie. So I thought that was always funny, but they continued doing Batman stuff. I think it was around 2010 when they brought it back, or 2012, excuse me, when they brought that back, and I remember seeing those sets, and there was something off about them when they brought back the line, and there's something in that original Batman Lego line that's just unique that I just love. And I love those vintage sets, but I guess they're not really vintage when I was a kid, but they're vintage now. And the only other line, this is a very weird one, but this is one that way out of my age range, and I can't believe I'm collecting them. I had to import them all on Europe, but it's this very weird line from Lego Explorer called Little Robots. And it used to be a show that was on Cartoon Network and the children's BBC, but it was this series that was based off a children's book, and Lego scooped up the licensing for it, and they had a TV show and everything. And it's these really cool, weird robotic themed Duplo sets that are based around the TV series. And I always loved the look of the figures. And around May last year, around June last year, around my birthday, I bit the bullet and I actually bought one. It cost a pretty penny to import, but they're actually very cool sets. So I'm happy I did. So I probably put our entire audience to sleep going over every one of those lines, but apologies for taking so long. But those are probably my top four. Excuse me, I broke instead of three, but those are probably my top three Lego lines. All right, and I guess we'll take it from there. I hope you enjoyed listening to the Lego Potter Podcast first edition. So just think of this as kind of the 2000 wave of sets edition. And then hopefully our next episode will be as good as the next wave that came out after that. But thank you for listening. I've been Gio. That's been Misha. And I don't have anything to plug, but if I know Misha has a pretty cool Instagram with some Harry Potter builds that you might want to check out. The account is
Pro Lego Maxima. There's an underscore after Pro Lego, so kind of like the spell Protego Maxima. I think I'm very clever. I don't know if I actually am though. So
I'd say you are. I'd say once you see his builds, it's better than anything I can do. It is quite fantastic. But anyway, that's it for this first episode. Thank you for listening. Hopefully we'll have a new episode out soon, and who knows what we'll cover next time. Thanks for listening.